All right, guys. Afternoon. For those of you who do not know me, because I do normally work during the weekday, I'm John Young. I am the outbound non-sort manager, operations manager. So I have been here since we actually launched the building. I actually helped launch the building in, I got hired in June. We really launched in October, got the building in August when there was no racking. You know, for those of you who've been here a while, know the building was basically completely empty when we got into it. We put the racking up, kind of worked half the building while construction put up the other racking. Then we came in, did our first peak. Then after that, we flipped to adding pick mod, conveyors, all that. I've been here through all those changes. A little bit of experience I had before this. I was at Under Armour in Nashville, Tennessee. I was up there for about 6 years as a supervisor and operations manager before transitioning down here. So a little bit of my background. Born and raised in Colorado. Was there until I turned 21, then moved to Nashville. That was kind of how I started the whole trend into the Under Armour job and to here. So just a little bit of history on myself. So a little bit of kind of what we're going to go through today. Obviously, communication. A lot of this has been kind of touched on a little bit in each of the classes. This is going to kind of go a little bit more in depth of how we can get better, how we can improve, and how we just overall communicate to our colleagues and then other people that you may be over, or even people that you're talking up to as well. Just any basic communication is going to help us out in the long run. So before we get started, I'm going to ask you guys a few questions. Again, I am more interactive. Want your guys' kind of participation, kind of interaction. It's a nice little group. This makes it a lot easier to kind of make sure everybody's kind of getting involved. But again, put your opinions out here. My way of style of communicating may be different than your guys' style of communicating. But maybe something you do will help somebody else over here, and some feedback that you give may help somebody else. So just want you guys to be participants in this, so let's definitely get involved and make sure it's not just you guys staring at me for an hour and making it awkward. Oh, wrong way. This clicker thing always messes me up. All right, so what's more difficult? Being an effective speaker or an attentive listener? What do you guys think?
Attentive listener.
Why?
Because as humans, we're geared to react versus listening. Like you hear the first part of what a person is saying, and then you want to jump right in instead of listening all the way through. And that may be what the listener actually wants, not for you to actually engage and I would say give your point of view.
Yes, absolutely. I think you said one word in particular there. Our basic instinct is to just automatically want to reply.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually a very good kind of description of that. I agree. I think it's one of those things where even myself, I had to catch myself where somebody will come up and say like the first 10 words of their idea, and I'm already thinking, okay, well, if they want to do that, then I need to do this, instead of fully listening to that. Does anybody disagree with that?
I was doing it to Mr. Jones right now. So I was like, that's right, that's exactly what that is. And I was doing this and felt myself trying to trail off. And then I was like, nope, listen to the rest of what he's saying. So yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Happens on a regular basis.
Exactly. So yeah, very good. And we'll be going through a lot of things and kind of talking about that a little bit more in depth. Yeah, very good call on that front. So which has more value, assertive speaking or engaged listening?
I think in the way that value engaged listening is more important.
Why do you say that?
Assertive speaking, you're speaking to try to, don't want to use the word in my own description, but you're trying to, I guess, impose what you're saying on others, whereas engaged listening, you're having a cooperative discussion between one another and actually working towards something.
Yep.
It's bringing teamwork.
Yeah, definitely very, very right on the head there. Another part of that is, when you're going through an average day in your work day, do you want your managers to tell you what to do all the time, or do you want to be heard and listened? 9 times out of 10, if there's a problem or an altercation or somebody's frustrated, it's because they're not being heard. So I definitely agree. I think there's more value in having that engaged listening. Obviously, there's always a point in a situation where you have to have that assertive speaking, but you need to listen and understand before you can really go through as far as serving that. So very good. And then last one, oh, stupid clicker. Which person is more likely to be lacking an above average speaking skills or above average listening skills? So who do you think would be lacking more? Somebody has above average
I
speaking?
would say the speaker,
Why you say that?
because they're focused more on what they're speaking on versus the listener.
Yep.
Versus listening to what the other person's saying.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, you know, the class that we did earlier this week, somebody said that they thought it was the speaker because, you know, sometimes, or the listener, because sometimes people are scared to get up in front and talk to people, those sort of things, which is true. But like we said, we just, as we've grown up and gone through, we've just been so used to speaking and putting our minds and our voices out there. We haven't really trained that sense of, okay, I need to listen and really understand what they're saying, opposed to just speaking my mind and saying what I feel, not feeling what they feel. So very good. So yeah, a lot of these topics we'll kind of cover throughout the topics that we'll be going through. But the next one, I swear I'm gonna
I do it too, and I've had to think for a minute.
Communicating and leadership, guys. So there's really two types, and there are two things that are very important when you look at communicating leadership. First one's going to be positive change. And this is one of those things where you're not looking at communicating big changes. It's all about the little tiny changes that you can kind of adjust. You know, just this picture right here, you can look, you know, modify, transition, transform, shift, adjust, new. That change pattern. You have to be able to implement in by empowering those around them to work towards common objectives. A leader's most powerful tool is by doing so in communication. If you can't communicate, you can't be able to demonstrate that change and be able to adjust things. If you're just kind of like, okay, and then you're just telling people what to do, but you're not really getting to the point of getting to know the people and understanding the processes and those sort of things. If I just told you, hey, go run a lap around the building, you guys are gonna look at me like I'm crazy, right?
Wow.
But if I told you why you're running around the building, what we're gonna do to get there, how I'm gonna help you through it, it's gonna help you guys kind of do that. So, but it's little tiny changes. It's not an instrumental right away change. I still struggle with my communication skills. I still get my words tongue tied on me. I'm still not comfortable all the time in certain situations when it comes to speaking to people. But I work on those little things to continue to get better. And we're gonna hit on those little things as we continue on. The other most important thing probably in communicating leadership is trust. You have to gain that trust. Like one scenario, so if I told you guys, go run a lap around the building, probably be like, all right, no. If I told Mulder, hey, Mulder, let's go run a lap around the building, he'd be like, okay, we'd start jogging, and then he'd probably go, okay, I don't know what we're doing, but I think you have a plan. But that's because me and Mulder have worked together for going on almost a year now. We have that trust. We know that, like, I don't know why we're doing this, but we're gonna figure it out. So you had to build that. Did it start that way with me and Mulder? No, you had to build that with your colleagues, your associates, superiors, everybody. You have to build those relationships, because if you don't, you're not gonna get that trust. Without that trust, they're just words. So with that, we'll go ahead and continue into some of those communication skills. Oh, dude, all right. So, first communication skill we're gonna go over is ability to adapt your communication style. So, how many of you have worked for a leader who is very quiet, reserved, and doesn't really say much other than, you know, hey, we need to do this, and then they're just kind of done? That? Okay. Who's had the one that speaks a million miles an hour, is energized? who's like Mulder? I have. Who's worked for that person who's very demanding, assertive, not necessarily mean, but they're to the point, they say what they mean, and you go get the job, right? Now, did those people speak to you the way you needed to be speak to? Or did they speak to you the way they speak?
The way they speak usually.
Exactly. And that's how you have to be able to kind of change that as a speaker. You have to be able to adjust and change who you're speaking to. The way I talk to Mulder is not necessarily gonna be the way I talk to Chris Minsman, or Tim, or Dee. Everybody has their different personalities and different styles. But you have to be able to adjust and change those. You can't just be authoritative, saying, hey, we need to get this done, do it this way right now. But you could be somebody who wants to be like, hey, this is a plan. What do you guys think? What can we do to kind of make this work? Some people want to be involved. Some people want to have it put in a little bit lighter, not so just in your face. You have to kind of understand that. You have to be able to adjust that. Again, everything I go over here, this isn't something that you're going to walk out here and go, all right, I've changed and you're perfect. Like, you have to consciously work on it. It's not something that you have to change in one day, but you have to remember, especially when you're in a conversation. Let's say you're talking to somebody and you leave that conversation and go, that did not go well. Those conversations where they're just awkward, they're uncomfortable, you just leave it and you're like, I did not connect with that person. That's probably because either the way they were speaking to you or you were speaking to them, or both. You both were using your style of communication instead of working into, hey, how do they want to be talked to? How do they want to talk to me? And kind of understanding that. So, super clicker. So we have to be able to adapt to those. Is it easy? No. There's some people that I still struggle to really communicate with, and not in the sense of I don't want to. It's just sometimes you gotta like really get to know somebody before you can really figure out how to talk to them. I'll be honest, when me and Mulder first started having communications, I think you'll admit to it. First couple conversations me and Mulder had, it was okay, and we walked away. Yep. But it was because just our communication styles were different. It took us a while to kind of develop that, and it took us to sit in the office and chit-chatting and just kind of starting to build that relationship that now we kind of know how to have those communications. So don't be afraid. If it's somebody that you're struggling to get a good communication with, maybe you need to put that extra time, that extra effort of just get to know the person a little bit. Figure out what makes them tick, figure out what do they do on the weekend. Just simple stuff that may get them to open up a little bit, and you may be able to start breaking down those walls and start figuring out like, okay, they'd rather be talked to this way opposed to that way. So next communication skill, active listening. We touched a little bit on this at the beginning. Guys, active listening is huge. A lot of times we just do active speaking because we're not truly listening to what somebody is saying. And the challenge to this is really focusing on it. Because like Mulder said, you were saying that statement and he was in his head doing the exact same thing. You have to really focus on it, because if you're not, you're just pretty much missing a lot of the point of what they're trying to get to. Somebody could come up to you and be frustrated, angry with what's going on, in a situation, and you just hear the first part of what they're angry about, but then they keep going and going and going. If you're instead of just trying to think what to respond to what they first said, and you actually listened to what they were saying, you may be able to find the root cause of that problem later when they were speaking. So again, being able to develop that active listening skill is huge. Again, it's not easy because our natural reaction is to, all right, I'm gonna say this or say that, or hey, I gotta be right in this situation. Sometimes just listen, take in the information, and then respond. All right, so transparency and clarity. I think this is a big one that sometimes, just as colleagues, individuals, we really struggle with. We just get in the habit of, hey, I don't know if I need to say this, or I don't know what information I need to have, so you kind of keep things in kind of a locked box. I'm very big, I would say this is one thing that I try and be very, very honest with my associates about. It's just being honest with what's going on. Sometimes a lot of the frustrations that you'll find out on the floor or in any work environment is everybody has the same common problem because they don't understand. They don't understand because there's no clear, transparent reason of why something's going on. Again, tell you to go run that mile around the building. If I tell you to go run that mile, what are you guys gonna do? Entire time you're probably walking the mile because you ain't gonna run, because I wouldn't be running. You're probably gonna sit there and complain about how I didn't tell you why we run a mile. This is the worst thing ever. Like, I don't understand why we're out here doing this. But had I told you why we're running a mile, hey guys, we're running a mile because it's for a 5K walk that will donate money to a charity, yada yada. You guys would probably be like, okay, now it makes sense why we're doing this. But without that clarity and that transparency, you guys would just be angry, mad, even though you don't need to be. So again, as a leader, make sure you're really explaining why you're doing something, why it's happening, as much as you can. You know, there are situations where, hey, I can't really divulge that information. However, this is what we're doing to maybe fix these situations. Because there are times that if you don't know something too, say you don't know. That's okay. It is okay. There's plenty of times associates come to me and ask me a question, and I go, I have absolutely no clue, but I will get back to you and let you know what that answer is. So just make sure you're clear and concise, whether you know or don't know. Just be transparent with your teams and your colleagues and just everybody involved. It's going to help you guys out in the long run. So empathy. I think this is probably one of the biggest and most important ones. I actually have, yep, so where is that? So yeah, in a recent survey, 96% of respondents said it was important for their employees to demonstrate empathy, yet 92% of them complained it was undervalued. So that basically means that most everybody believes that empathy is a very, very good value to be a leader, but 92% of people think that not a lot of people view it that way. I think personally, empathy is one of the most important skills you can have, because we're here to do a job. Everybody is. We're here to do the same thing pretty much every day, day in and day out. But you have to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You know, if somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey man, I gotta go, my kid's sick, whatever it may be, and they leave, I could sit there and be like, oh, he's messed up my production, he needs to stay here. Like, I could just be a bad leader and yell at him, be like, why are you leaving me? Like, I need you to hit these numbers and get out of here. How's that person gonna feel? He's gonna feel like I don't care. He's gonna feel like I'm just a bad guy who just cares only about what's production on the floor.
Right.
But if I'm like, hey man, get out of here, let me know how your kid is, I'm sorry, if you need anything, let me know. He's probably gonna leave in a much better situation than the way I responded the first time. So again, be empathetic. Now there's always that line, if somebody's dog ate the keys to their car 4 days in a row and that's why they were late. Okay, there's some things going on there that you gotta kind of come back on a little bit, but again, understand your employees, understand what makes them tick, show that empathy, it's gonna go a long way for you guys.
Well, I have an example.
Yeah.
So recently I helped out on another shift. And so the way that I communicate with part of my team is they have specifically asked us to communicate this way, to be very direct on like what the action is they need from us. And so when we send in, like we have a chat, so like we'll send it in, like the verbiage is literally locate, excuse me, locate or cut, please. So like we're asking, but like we're telling them like what action we need because obviously we get assigned. So when I helped out on another shift, I did the same thing and I didn't think anything about it. And if it wasn't for the person coming to me, being transparent on their end, I wouldn't have realized that they were taking it in a different way. But someone had come to me and was like, dude, why are you telling us what to do? And I was like, what are you talking about? So they just brought it to my attention and brought awareness to it, like that the way that I was writing it, even though I used the word please, like they weren't taking it that way. They weren't taking it nice at all. They were taking it like I was telling them what to do and like dictating how to do their job. Which in fact was not at all what I was trying to do. But again, it goes on all of those things, like the communication. But if that person had not come to me, I would have never known that I was upsetting them, because that's what we do on our shift. So it didn't occur to me like that's not how they do it either, or to maybe word it differently. Because in my mind, like there was nothing. I was just like, hey, like any of this item, like something needs to happen, And I was being polite, but like they didn't take that way. So like all of these things are definitely true. And like if I wasn't empathetic with that person, even though it doesn't matter, like personally, if I agreed or not agreed with why they were taking it in a negative way, it doesn't matter. I have to be empathetic with that person or those people that were taking it that way and try to understand, like, you never know someone's background. You never know what their triggers are. You don't never know what mindset they're in that day. Maybe they've had a long week. You don't know what's going on with them. And so that situation could have been really bad if I had not had the right attitude and been open to communication with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think you really touched a lot of those different concepts just in that scenario. Because you could have gotten defensive. You could have been like, "Whoa, hey, you're the person who's doing it wrong." You could have been that way.
Right.
But instead, you're like, "Hey, I'm sorry, misunderstanding." You clarified. You made it transparent of what you were doing and why it was going that
Right,
way.
I even showed like the person, I was like, I'm not trying to disrupt you, like this is legit how we, like I pulled up my chat and I was like, this is how we communicate because this is what they need from us. But yeah,
Yep.
it could have been a whole thing. It ended up not being anything, but like if we hadn't had that communication, like it could have been really bad.
Yep, and like I said, probably 90% of confrontations and issues at work can be fixed by just proper communication.
Right.
It could just, I would keep a level head and just talking through it. 90% of those issues can just wash away, and there isn't as big of a problem as it could be.
And everything that you just described, I mean, there's so much there. And like he said, it hits pretty much every single element that he has up there. Doing all these things builds up one of those two items that he spoke of earlier, trust. Building that trust up, you get to a point later on, they trust you so much, you tell them to run around the building. They just go. They don't know why they're going, but they're like, we trust her, so we're going to go. And they trust you because you had the empathy, you had the transparency, and clarity. You were actively listening to them. It's huge. So well done.
Yep, absolutely. Let's transition open body language, guys. So if I were to stand up here and just be like, guys, you're having a great day, and I think you should just keep doing what you're doing. Have a great day. Like it's gonna come like, what's wrong with this guy? Like,
Your body's not matching what you're
exactly.
saying.
Exactly. That body language says a lot. And a lot of people in a lot of situations, they're frustrated and they're upset, but they're trying to convey a positive message, but their body doesn't go with them. And then how many times have you guys been in the middle of a meeting or a speech from a leader or whatever, and you can tell they're visibly frustrated, but they're trying to like push something off, maybe good or whatever, but you can tell like, okay, yeah, they're not happy about anything that's going on right now. That happens. You speak, most cues come from body language, especially when you have a colleague or somebody comes up to you and they're going, hey, I have a problem, I have this situation going on at home, but it's fine, I'll take care of it. And you just don't look at them, you don't acknowledge that they're looking down away from you, stumbling to get through that conversation, but you're focused on your computer or whatever you're doing. You're gonna miss that. You're gonna miss that open body language of, hey, this person's struggling, they were trying to tell me something, and then they completely shut down and left. You need to be able to be aware of those situations, and you gotta be aware of it about yourself. Sometimes, if you're in a difficult situation, let's say you had an argument or confrontation with somebody, and you come up and you're trying to have a conversation with your boss, and you're still frustrated and angry, and you say something to your boss, and your body language is speaking a different way, you could get yourself into a situation. So just be aware of that body language. It does speak a lot. It's a lot more telling than you'd probably realize if you really focus on it with people. A lot of their body language will tell you kind of help you direct where that conversation needs to go to help with the situation. Now, the last one of these is receiving and implementing feedback. So your example is actually a very good example of that. Somebody came up to you, gave you that feedback. You had that situation. If you went back to that shift, what would you do?
I would use the conversation in order to remember, like, hey, don't send this in that chat. Use different verbiage.
Yep, exactly. Now let's say you went back and you did the exact same thing you did the first time.
Yeah, then I'm not favorite choice.
How's that gonna go?
It's not gonna go well. They're not gonna be receptive. They're gonna be angry. They may not come back to communicate again.
Yep.
They may funnel that up, and then it just causes unnecessary frustration.
Yep, tension, frustration, all that. So yeah, guys, feedback. Feedback is huge. One, you have to be able to accept it and realize that it's not a slight on you. It is something to help you improve and get better at. I personally love receiving and giving feedback because that's the only way we're gonna get better. If you apply for an area manager role and you keep getting told no, but no one tells you why you're getting told no and gives you nothing to improve at, how are you gonna get better? How are you gonna improve? You need to know those details. You need to know, hey, what did I do wrong? What can I do better in the future? Where am I lacking? So I can change it and get better. But that's the big word there, change. Talked about it earlier, incremental changes, little changes, adjust as you go. So you can receive that feedback all day, but if you're not gonna take that feedback and learn and grow and develop from it, you're gonna just be stuck in the mud. You know, I've received a lot of feedback throughout my career. There was, how many of you have ever struggled to write an email or have struggled writing emails? So, prime example of this, when I worked up in Under Armour, I sent an email to all managers about how we are neglecting the safety of our associates and we are going to try to get somebody killed one day. I was a very young supervisor at the time. So, round of hands here. How many think you went that went well for me? Did not. I got reamed. I got a lot of feedback off that. But guess what I did? I learned from it. Yes, did it suck in that moment? And yes, did I get in trouble? Absolutely. But I took it as a learning opportunity. You're not always going to do everything right. You are going to make mistakes. But take those mistakes, learn and grow from them. Take that feedback, learn and grow from it. But also, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it out to the world. Tell people how dumb you were for sending an email about safety that was going to kill everybody. Which was not true. I was just angry at the time, and it got the best of me. We'll hit more subjects about that a little bit more later on. But
one tiny little bit to that. That happens a lot. You're gonna get really frustrated. A lot of you probably already do. Write the email with your frustrations and everything else, detailing it all out. Don't put anybody in the CC or to part. And then hold on to it. Write it, but hold on to it. Okay? And then wait a little bit, give yourself some time to calm down, go back, read it, and be like, oh, that would have caused a problem. I have an outbox. I clean it out every once in a while, and I fill it up with such things. Because I'll write it out initially how I'm feeling, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna wait a little bit and see how it goes, and try to fix it otherwise. If it's still good, it's like, yeah, that's probably needs to be sent maybe a couple times, then I'll send it.
yeah.
But for the most part, probably 90% of the time, I don't send those.
Yeah. And I can guarantee at the when me and Mulder first started working together in S1, there was a few to John.
One and two. Fortunately, you were like right there, so that kind of helped out a little bit.
Yeah. All right, guys. So, should all have a piece of paper and a marker in front of you guys. We're gonna do an activity. So, this activity we're gonna do, I'm basically gonna go through it. I'm gonna ask you guys to draw a picture. Basically what I'm wanting you to make. I'm gonna do it 2 times, but you're gonna notice 2 different ways I'm gonna do this throughout the process. So, we will go ahead and get started on the first one. All right, make sure. Okay. All right, step 1, draw a circle. Step 2, draw another circle. Step 3, draw one more circle. Step 4, place 2 dots in a circle. Step 5, draw a line in a circle. Step 6, place a U shape in a circle. Step 7, draw 2 lines from a circle.
From a circle.
Yep. Step 8.
You should probably see here what you're.
Step 8, draw 3 lines from a line. All right. So that was the first one. You should have a beautiful photo now.
What do you have?
He got some alien circles over here or something.
I said it's a new Pokemon. Look it up.
Yeah.
I got like a weird.
All right. So before I go to the next step, how was that?
Very vague.
Very vague.
That's lots of
How'd you feel
questions.
about me telling you that?
Lost.
Yeah,
Okay,
a
okay,
lot of questions.
alright, okay. Alright, we're gonna go to the second one.
Same page?
You can do it on the other page. I just wanted to keep the other page, so you have that one as an example of what you did for the other one. So, step 1. Today I'll be walking you through how to draw a simple snowman.
You were so close.
I was so close.
Step 2. We'll be starting with the base of the snowman. This will be the largest portion of the body, so draw a circle big enough to fit 2 small circles above. Draw this circle at the bottom of the page, as the rest of the snowman will be made above. Step 3. We will now draw the middle of the snowman. Make a circle slightly smaller than the first, with the bottom of this circle touching the top of the first circle you made. Step 4. You will now draw the small circle on the snowman for his head. Make sure it is still large enough to fit 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Draw this circle slightly smaller than your second circle, with the bottom of this circle touching the top of the second circle. Step 5. We will now add the eyes, nose, and mouth. Start by placing 2 dots towards the top of the third circle for eyes. These should be even to each other, just like our eyes. Then you will draw a line slightly below these eyes, but in between them, and move it to the left to create a nose. Finally, you will draw a smiley mouth below the nose. It should start below the nose, curve slightly down, and then back up to create a smiley or U shape. Step 6. Now we give the snowman arms. On both the left and right sides of the second circle, middle circle, you will draw a line away from the middle circle to your preferred length of arm. Ensure you are doing this for both sides, going away from the circles. Finally, step 7, finally, we will add 3 fingers to each of the snowman's arms. At the end of each of the lines you just drew, draw 3 lines coming from them to represent fingers. Step 8, appreciate your beautiful snowman. All right, guys.
Huzzah.
Perfect.
So, to recap,
I don't know, I like the unknown better.
diameter.
Faulty.
Oh, did you turn it off?
Something faulty.
Oh, no. GeoS popped up. Oh. You know, so GeoS.
Right.
All right, recap. How's the experience? What was the difference from the first one to the second one?
Detailed instruction.
Yes.
Detailed instructions. Okay. Anything else? Like, how'd you feel the first time? Like, comparatively to the second time?
Lost.
Very lost? Okay.
Had no idea what the point was, didn't know like what the overall picture was of what they were doing and why.
And how's that different from the second time?
Second time there was a lot more detail, you knew what we were gonna draw, you knew what the end result was supposed to be.
There's that transparency, there's that clarity, right? You guys knew what the objective was, you knew where we were going, and you knew what we needed to achieve it. Now, question for you. How many of you started drawing before I actually stopped reading or saying what I was saying?
I really had to hold myself back up.
Yep. Because we're so intact to draw a circle, okay, but draw a circle and there's more there, right? Make sure, again, that active listening is very, very important. Because eventually, again, you want a beautiful snowman at the end. That was what I was describing for you guys to draw. Did it exactly turn out like that? No. Probably the one part that I kind of threw in there that I think was going to mess you guys up was how I told you to draw the line for the nose to the left, but I actually did it wrong on here because I did it to the right. So I did it wrong even off of my own instructions. But this is another good visual here. Had I read that and had this pulled up, wouldn't that have been much easier?
Yes.
Some people are visual too. Sometimes you have to walk people through. Communication isn't all just about the words, it's about how you're presenting it and how you're showing it as well. So, is that a good activity for you guys? That kind of help with a lot of those concepts in the forefront? So, any other feedback on that? Anybody else? Well, there you go. So that's all your
I was
game.
like, looks
That's
like
all your game wants to go up with. Stop.
No, I mean, this is so good, right? You have the first one, and this happens in real life, right? You have a leader come in and be like, all right, he has the vision in his mind. He knows exactly what he's gonna do, and he goes out there and tells his crew, hey, we're gonna do X, Y, Z, and we're gonna do it now. And then people start moving, and he's like, oh, you're not doing what I want you to do. I told you to do this, and I told you to do this, that, and the other, and you're not doing it the way that I saw, right? He spoke it. He said to draw the circles, but you didn't draw the circles like you wanted. But we get frustrated as leaders sometimes when our vision isn't seen the same way as the people that we're telling it to, right? So if we take John's side of it as well, speak assertively, go into the transparency and clarity side of it, right? Give them a visual to go off of as well, tell them exactly what they're doing. They have that clarity, they're able to deliver on the expectation. So it works better for both parties, especially if you listen.
Yep. And even what you guys drew, I can guarantee you it didn't look like the snowman that I was trying to describe. That was because I could have been more communicative. I could have shown you. I could have walked you through it. I could have been a little bit more in depth. Now, do we always have that time in a conversation?
No.
Obviously not. But when it's something important and something that's going to be vital to your performance, your team's performance, your colleagues' performance, those are the times you take that extra step and really make sure people have a clear understanding. I can tell you right now, there are probably, how many managers do we have in the building? Roughly 45, 50?
45, 50, yeah.
Yeah, there's probably about 30 of them that think I communicate too much. I'll be honest with you, they probably think I am too thorough, too communicative, but guess what? When we go to do the activity or job or situation that we gotta do, most of them understand what the process is, what needs to be done. There are some times where maybe I go a little too much with it, sometimes maybe not enough. But those are things that I've kind of learned over my years too. There were a lot of times where I would send an email that is almost 1,000 words. Older.
Guilty.
The problem I realized with that is people would read the first 2 lines and not read the rest. So you have to learn, especially when you're communicating through those emails and you're not having that face-to-face interaction, how do you say more with less? How do you communicate more with less? So again, it's not something you're gonna learn over time, or that's not something you're gonna know right away, it's something you're gonna learn over time. But again, bullet points, especially in emails, bullet points, italicizing, highlighting specific things. Don't highlight and italicize the whole thing because you're gonna lose your purpose. But the important key parts that you want people to know and understand, like a due date or the key reason for all this, why it's important, highlight it, bold it, whatever. Just make it stand out just a little bit so people can have a good understanding of that. Also, bullet points in emails. I didn't get into this in the last group, so you guys are gonna get a little extra here. Bullet points are a huge thing too. Quick, easy, they understand. It breaks up the paragraph a little bit if it's a long thing for people to kind of like step by step. You give people steps, it's a lot easier to kind of follow. So, all right. So, kind of transitioning into listening. Obviously we talked about speaking a little bit, and a lot of it's been about listening already. We're going to kind of transition a little bit more into that. So, the importance of listening in leadership is critical for a team's performance. If you can't listen, you can't hear your team, can't hear your associates, your colleagues, you're not going to go anywhere. Because at that point, all you're hearing is yourself. A leader who is an authoritarian or judgmental may cause their employees to be afraid of them and unwilling to communicate. This can lead to team dysfunction and poor productivity. How many of you have been to a leader who is their way or the highway? How many of you left that job because of that leader? You have to be able to relate and not build up those walls. When you're just yelling and telling people what to do, you're building up those walls to not allow anybody in. Again, it's kind of what I'm saying. So, how did it make you guys feel when they, you told them something, they're like, yeah, whatever. You moved on. How did that make you guys feel? What'd you do next?
You get frustrated.
Frustrated?
Sometimes stick them, block out what they say, or
You're
you
not-
don't even try to say anything back. 'Cause
You're not as engaged as you should be.
Yep. Do you feel comfortable going to them again?
Good.
Nope.
So what do you do when you come up with a problem?
Figure it
Just
out
write
on
it
your own, or just
Exactly. Make cut corners. Maybe do something unsafe. that could potentially hurt you or somebody else, right? Like, those are the things that, just as a leader, you doing one thing pushes somebody aside, saying, hey, you're not important, I don't need your information, go do this. That one time you do it, you've lost that associate, or that colleague, or even you tell your boss, like, hey, that's not important. Your boss is gonna be like, okay, well, I don't trust that person to do this job that I need them to do. You're hurting yourself in those situations. So just make sure you guys are always receptive. Even if it's something that you're like, man, I don't believe in this idea at all, listen, let them get it out. You know, look into it, you know, because sometimes, honestly, every time we've had a lot of improvements on the floor, associates have come up with. It's because we were willing to listen, we were willing to hear, we were willing to understand, develop those things. So now, does this mean being a authoritative, you know, hey, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to get it done type leadership style? Is that a bad thing?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, right? But it's how it's laid out, right? It's how it's perceived. You know, I can tell Mulder, we gotta go get this done now. Cool, let's go. I go to somebody else, say, hey, we gotta do this right now. They're gonna be like, excuse me? Hold up, like, what? How are you talking? Like, you gotta know how to present to certain people in certain situations. Especially in group situations, that's always the most difficult part, because you're trying to touch everybody, but everybody's a little different. So again, that's where that transparency and clarity we're talking about earlier is huge. You gotta be as clear and as transparent as you can, because if you're not, you're gonna get some alien boxes or circles or whatever when you're wanting a snowman. So, all right, with that, listening skills. All right, so ask the right and open-ended questions. Sorry, I worded that wrong. So ask the right and open-ended questions. So if somebody comes up to me and they're frustrated, hey, this process is terrible, you know, I can't get from A to B without this issue, and you go, okay, do you want me to change it? Yeah, okay, I'll work on that. Is that getting anywhere? Is that getting anywhere to help the associate or yourself? No. Ask the right questions. Hey, I'm having this issue, I can't get from point A to point B. Okay, well, what's impeding you from getting from point A to point B? Okay, well, this is happening and I can't do it because at this time of day, you know, this is happening. Okay, so what you're telling me is at this point in time of the day, this is happening. You know, what do you think we could do to fix that? Well, I think if we did this and switch that around, we could. Awesome, I think that's a great idea. Let's see if we can try and implement that. See how that kind of transitions a little bit easier? Asking those right, open-ended questions is gonna be huge. Developing that and getting trust. At that point, that associate's like, oh, I'm being heard, they're listening to me. I feel like I can go to them now. That builds that trust up with your team like I was talking about earlier. And again, if you can get that win for them, what are they gonna do? They're gonna run that mile around the building for you. Have an open mind. This is a big one, guys. I'm very bad about it. I get an idea on something, somebody gives me a project, I can put it on it. I get an idea on something, and I run with it. I am just gung-ho, we're gonna do this. But then Mulder comes up like, hey John, it's a great idea. I think we could do it this way to make it more better and efficient. If I go, shut up Mulder, and I run away, one, that's me. Two, Mulder is probably gonna be like, all right, well, I guess not gonna do anything with John again. Like, it's gonna shut him down, which could be somebody, and he could have a great idea that could make that process even better, and I've completely shut it down. And I've made him feel, you know, on the outside looking in, because I didn't include him and hear him out. Be open. Not everybody has the same ideas as you, but it doesn't mean their ideas are wrong. And just because their idea may be better than yours, doesn't mean you any less important to that situation. Because you can collaborate and get that together, at the end of the day, getting to the objective the best way possible is the ultimate goal. And everybody can succeed in that, because then at the end of the day, that project me and Mulder did, guess what? Me and Mulder did together. We worked together. Instead of me doing a so-so project, I get all the credit, cool, whatever, but it didn't go that great. But if I included Mulder, project was better. We worked through those different things, different ideas. Again, be open-minded. You're gonna have a lot of people with a lot of different ideas. And a lot of times you're gonna have a lot of people who are gonna have different open ideas. They're gonna be very long-winded. I know you've probably ran into that. People will have a very long idea that could be much shorter. Listen to it, try and fill it out, see if it's a good idea. And if not, work together, see how you can maybe implement them at least into what the idea is. So develop your emotional intelligence. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this one. The last two classes have kind of gone over emotional intelligence. But again, you have to be aware of the situation, who you're around, who you're talking to. Those are things you just have to be aware of. Again, just like all these concepts today, it's gotta be something you gotta constantly think about. If you just think you're just gonna get better tomorrow, you're not. You have to be able to continuously work on it and grow from those different situations. If you have a bad conversation with somebody, take a second, sit down. Hey, what went wrong in that conversation? Well, I asked them this, they said this. Well, then I said this, which is probably what, yeah, that was it. I shouldn't have said that comment. There's certain things that you can go back and look at to help you kind of grow and develop. Like, you know what, I'm gonna do a situation a little bit differently. So yeah, can just make sure you guys are always aware of those situations. It's very, very important of being able to handle those emotions. And again, don't get angry. At the end of the day, this is a job. It's not something that's life or death. You getting angry and flying off the handle, it's only gonna make things worse for everybody involved. They're gonna feel attacked, you're gonna probably get yourself in trouble. Don't go into that realm. I've seen way too many good managers lose their jobs because they just flew off the handle for no reason at all. So again, remain calm, cool, glad. Minimize distractions. So this is a big one, especially as you move up, the distractions get bigger. You're gonna get more and more on your plate. You're gonna get a lot more coming at you. As a associate, if you're an associate out there in WFS packing. You're just packing. This is what you do for the most part, you're just packing. You move up to a lead, okay, well now you're in charge of managing all the packers, and then this other issue and this little fire over here, then you go to an area manager, and again, just the distractions keep it spinning. Minimize distractions in important conversations. The worst thing you could do is somebody coming up like, hey, I really need to talk to you. It's really important. I've had a big problem, I need to talk to you. Okay, cool. Worst thing you can do is like, okay, yeah, I hear you, yeah. Don't keep talking, yeah. How's that gonna make that person feel?
Not listening.
They're not gonna feel heard. Like you don't care. Like you're not showing that empathy.
And saying, I'm listening, does not help.
No.
I'm listening, sure you are.
In those important conversations, close the laptop, put the phone down, focus on the person, make eye contact, have that conversation. Because it could be something very, very important to them that they are gonna struggle to get through. And if you can be there for them in that situation, it's gonna build so much trust that you guys will understand. There's been several associates I've had issues with in the past that I just sat and had a conversation about on what was going on, and they just let it out for 10, 15 minutes. We talked through it, and they ended up being some of my best associates I've ever had. Because I built that trust with them. I was willing to sit there and just listen. A lot of times that's all we need, right? How many frustrations have you guys had where your manager would just let you vent and let you get it out? We would have been probably okay, right? Because you're not expecting us all to change the world. We're not expecting you guys to change the world. But just being felt, being heard, listening to them, that's the most important thing, guys. Reflect back. So this is a really good one, especially if you are talking to a person who is maybe being a little bit confrontational, having some issues, they're, maybe in an angry fashion. Walk through like, hey, I'm mad that our break times are only 20 minutes, they should be 30 minutes. I don't know why, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all right, so I understand you're upset that breaks aren't longer. What can we do to, maybe help you with this break problem? Well, it'd be much better if blah, 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 blah. Continue just letting them get it out. You're not really doing much. All you're doing is retelling them what they told you, but it tells them that you're listening to them, and continue to break down and continue to go, why? What can we do? How can we help? Does that mean we're always gonna be able to help? No. Are we gonna be able to change that break time? Probably not. But what can we do to help them out? Hey, I'm struggling because at the end of the day, you have me, working all the way up to the end, and then you want me to clean my aisle and do all this and, all these different things. Okay, well, what we'll do is this, we'll cut you down 5 minutes for it in a day, give you a little bit extra time to clean the aisle, see how that works, and then we'll reconvene next week and see how that's working for you. If it's not working well, we'll readjust down the plan. Does that sound good? Most times they're like, okay, yeah, like, again, de-escalate the situation by just working with them. Now, can you fix everything? No. Sometimes you gotta have those difficult conversations. But again, being able to reflect back and really let them know you're listening to them is huge. All right, and last one, give yourself a breathing room, guys. I'm probably one of the worst ones at this. I get pulled into 80,000 different things during the week. I'm doing 10 different projects. I'm helping people with this, helping HR with that, AP with that. I need to do a better job of taking a step back. Okay, what have I gone through today? Okay, I've had this, this, and this. Oh, this associate said they need to talk to me. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I make time to do this, to talk to that associate. Take a second, take a step back, collect yourself. If you're not collecting yourself to remember and go through all the things you're going through and put the stuff that's important in front of you, you're gonna kind of let that stuff slip. So just make sure you guys are definitely giving yourself breathing room on that stuff. So that is pretty much all I have for you guys. Just to kind of recap a little bit, though, guys. Again, be empathetic, be transparent, be clear when you're communicating. It's huge. You're gonna bring more bees with honey than anything. You know, I'm not saying be somebody that just walked over and associates can do whatever around you. No, hold to the expectation. But again, if you're gonna set an expectation, set it, hold it. Hey, the expectation is you don't run stop signs out here. You catch the associate running a stop sign, here's your occurrence. But if that associate runs a stop sign, they don't get an occurrence, but then the next one does, and they get an occurrence, what have you just done?
Show favoritism.
Favoritism. You've built that divide. Be consistent, be transparent, be honest, be open. And again, continue to develop, take that feedback. You're not gonna be a perfect speaker. I'm not a perfect speaker. I could have done better during this presentation. I've probably had a few things in my head that I could have probably done a little differently. That's okay. I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna learn from it, I'm gonna grow from it. And that's all you guys gotta do. And again, if you have questions, concerns, like, hey, I'm struggling with this, message me. I'm always available. I'm on Zoom, Teams, email, pretty much every communication we have in the building, I'm on it. So if you guys need anything, message me. That's pretty much all I got. You guys have any questions?
Excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Boulder?
Yes, sir. What time? Anybody got the time on? 5 o'clock on the dot?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna take 3 minutes, ish.
Sure.
I haven't seen you talk in 3 minutes.
Fair point. All right, so I'm gonna be as quick as I can with this. This is the last month of this year that we're able to do the D2L class. Okay, we will not be doing it during November and December. All right, because of peak. Yes. However, that doesn't mean you have to stop growing and developing yourselves, right? I told you all this when I moved from S5 to S1, right? Y'all can continue on, okay? We are not the force that keeps you moving forward to get you better, right? We're a little bit of the hype train. We're a little bit of, hey, here's some tools to help you out. We're the mentors to help you to get through some of the rougher times. Hey, I've got XYZ going on. This stuff is dragging me down. Hey, we're the good ear to listen to, okay? We're all those things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to y'all to actually action and do it, right? You can have all the planning in the world, you can have all the tools in the world, all the motivation in the world, but until you act, none of that other stuff matters. And we have to act outside of our comfort zones, have those difficult conversations. You keep looking for those opportunities to say, hey, you know what? Here's a project that's possibly a little bit outside of my expertise, but I have a web network of people that I can go and talk to that can help me along with it. We have one of our guys, Brent, who took on a massive project, building wide, right? Associate level, hey, that's color doesn't matter, right? Took on a project reorganizing the pit equipment out there and the parking for each and every area, right? Now, don't get me wrong, there was a fantastic job done the first time with that parking planning by one of our own over here. He did a great job, and Brent told him so. Didn't he say that? Wasn't that his words?
Yeah, so a little backstory. So Brent's my associate, so he came up to me. He was talking about the pit parking, and he came up to me, and again, it's about kind of knowing your audience and all those sort of things. He came up to me, he's like, yeah, whoever designed this the first time just did a really bad job. And I was like, that was me. I was like, but here's the thing, that situation, that is why I kind of talked about in the last class, because he was in it. I thought it was kind of funny and kind of translated in the class well. I could have gotten mad. I could have been like, this dude's calling me, like, terrible. Like, he said I did such a bad job. Like, I could have been mad. I could have came at him. But I knew he didn't know that. He didn't know that I was the one who did that. He wasn't trying to take a shot at me for doing that way the first time. He was just kind of saying, oh, this is a bad idea the first time. But when I told him that was me, you should have seen his eyes and his jaw drop. He was like, well, I didn't know. I was like, you're good.
Backpedal.
But that's a good lesson learned from him, too. Don't ever assume you know who did it, because it could be somebody that you're talking to right then and there. Don't make those assumptions. And again, if you're in those situations, somebody says your project's terrible, take it on the chin. Like, okay, it's fine. They may not know. Now, if you tell them and they're like, oh yeah, it's still terrible. Okay, now you're speaking me. But again, be aware, not everybody knows everything. Don't take everything so to heart. Just be open about it. So.
And that's that EQ playing out right there, right? Being able to maintain your composure when someone's, saying some not so nice things. Not a big deal that you did, yeah?
Now listen, I don't think it was that good of a plan either.
You need something you need tomorrow? Well, here's which I got it, right? The second part, okay, like I said, this last month before the actual classes, second part, we are going to, or we've altered kind of how we do the challenges and the assignments. All right, you may or may not have noticed, not a whole lot of stuff's being put out in teams, yeah? It's gone fairly dark. The reason for that is for that last one that I put out there was seeing who it was who was actually implementing those challenges, who was actually taking those upon themselves to act upon them, and those who were doing the assignments. If you turned in the last assignment, I gave you another one. If you turned the last one, I give you another one. And once you turn that one in, I will give you another. I will continue to give you as many tools that you say that you are ready for. You tell me that you're ready for it by doing the previous one. I'll say this as well. If you have some other thing that you're doing that kind of coincides with this, with your growth, with your personal development, because we're all different, right? All these tools we're handing out are designed to help y'all individually. But at the same time, if you've done something too for yourself, right? If you've taken on a project outside of here, if you've had communications outside of here, if you've altered some things, tell us about it, right? I'll take it to myself, I'll send it out to your mentors, they'll provide feedback to you, and then we'll get you another, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be that for which I've sent out. But for the challenges and for the assignments, if you want more of those tools to help you along, okay, to dive kind of deeper into kind of what makes you tick. What is it that you're doing well? What could you be doing better on? All those different things, then you've got to turn in the previous one, right? It's for challenges and assignments both. I want you to grow. At this point, you're going to grow as much as you want to at your own pace, right? I'm not going to be, hey, this is your assignment, this is the due date assignment. At this point in the class, it's all on you, okay? I'm also doing this other thing I haven't told anybody else, including this guy. I'm doing a survey of sorts for the associates, for the D2L associates, and for the managers as well. I told you from the get-go, I want you to challenge us, okay? And tell us kind of your thoughts and your thinking on things, critically thinking everything that we're telling you. Don't take everything 100% for what we're saying. I want you to challenge it. Well, this is a direct opportunity for y'all to do as much. Right, to give us your exact thoughts on how the class has been up until this point, specific things going all throughout, and then a general statement for yourself, however you want to state it. So It'll only be 7 to 10 questions. It's not real long, but I'll put that out here within the next week or two. Because once we start back up again in January, I'm gonna take everything that you all have said, give it out to the D2L managers, and we're gonna make changes according to what we've heard. Because that's how we get better. Because there's things that maybe we're not seeing that y'all haven't currently told us about. I don't know. Maybe there's a different way to do it. Maybe you have a better idea about doing the classes or doing the assignments than we do. Everything we've done up until this point is brand new. There was no precedent for this. Are there any other buildings who are doing it to the kind of extent that we are?
I honestly don't know. I would say probably not.
Okay.
But that would probably more question for year two. But
Okay. The ones that I've been to, haven't.
I haven't
heard
seen
much.
a ton of it, but I haven't really asked either. So.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is all new. All right. So everything that we're doing, we're like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Y'all tell me from your side. Okay. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. If you're a bit frustrated at this point, if you're feeling like life's hitting pretty hard, and you're trying to make the changes, you're going out, you're saying the different things you're trying to implement, the changes we told you about to implement or use the tools that we've given you, to use the skills that we've talked about. If you've read into the books and you're like, I'm doing all these things, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of progress. I'm not seeing that whole lot of change. My vest isn't changing color. My bank account isn't getting any bigger. The people aren't treating me any differently. I just don't see it. Take into account the small battles that you win. Those little steps that you make, those little changes, those little critical thinking items, those conversations that you have, say, with a difficult person. And when you first had them, it was rough. You're like, God, I hate that guy. It's a pain to deal with. He doesn't listen to anything that I'm telling him. But now, say a few months down the road, you're like, that conversation I just had with him went a lot better than when I had early on. That's a win right there, right? Because you've changed, you've adapted, you've gotten better in dealing with that person. The more difficult the person, the better that you're able to develop yourself to deal with them, the more that you grow as a person. If you have nothing but easy days all ahead of you, then there's no point, and you're not growing at all. It's the tough days that make us better. But I want you to know, huh?
So those easy days are nice.
Every once in a while, yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's nice to breathe, right? That breathing room. But I want you to take into account those small battles that you win, and that's your sign of progression right there. Those little wins all throughout the time, right? Remember the promotion slide that I put up there, a couple of months ago? Was it this bright sunshiny thing with rainbows everywhere? Was it something that was like an aurora of beautifulness, or was it something that was a little bit darker, a little bit tougher? Do y'all remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of how promotion is. That's kind of how growth is. It's not an easy thing, and it's tough, and it's a pain in the backside most of the time, but it is worth it. Okay. That's all I've got for now. I think it was a little around 3 minutes, right? Close, pretty close.
Oh, totally.
Plus 8. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fairly close. So that's all I got. Thank you all very much. John, thank you very much. Everybody give him a hand real quick on his presentation. Appreciate it so. And again, reach out to us if y'all need anything. We're here for you still.
And the snowmen are your souvenirs.
All right, cool. Thank you.